girlfriends. Welcome to another episode of Girlfriends and Goals. We're your hosts, Miosha
and Samaria.
This podcast is a space where we'll talk about friendships, life goals, a little bit of pop culture, and all things womanhood. So we're very excited today because we have a guest joining us for this episode. Well, welcome to the Girlfriends and Goals podcast, Champagne.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I'm fangirling because I'm a fan of the Girlfriends and Goals podcast. And now I'm here chatting with you all. My name is Champagne Giggles, Miss Champagne, if you're nasty. I am the narrator and host of the My Husband Would Never podcast. It's more than a podcast. It's also my open diary. It dives into everything love, dating, romance, and everything in between. I share real stories about my dating experiences, my romance experiences, to give encouragement to other hopeless romantics. And while I don't know my husband yet, I do know what my husband would never do. And that's why I exist.
I know that's right.
Okay.
Well, welcome. We're so happy that you're joining us again.
Thank you.
Yes. And just to reiterate, make sure you follow her on Instagram at My Husband Would Never. She has an awesome page, lots of quotes, inspiration. So yeah, it's at My Husband Would Never on Instagram. All right. So we're going to jump into our first segment today, which is called Girl, What's Good? And in this segment, we talk about things that we've been loving for the past couple of weeks. It could be a book, a place, store, a wine. So we're going to start with you, Champagne. What have you been loving? What's been good with you?
What's been good with me is Insecure. I'm really happy that Insecure is back. I'm happy to see that one of my predictions came through.
Hey, girlfriends. Welcome to another episode of Girlfriends and Goals. We're your hosts, Miosha
and Samaria.
This podcast is a space where we'll talk about friendships, life goals, a little bit of pop culture, and all things womanhood. So we're very excited today because we have a guest joining us for this episode. Well, welcome to the Girlfriends and Goals podcast, Champagne.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I'm fangirling because I'm a fan of the Girlfriends and Goals podcast. And now I'm here chatting with you all. My name is Champagne Giggles, Miss Champagne, if you're nasty. I am the narrator and host of the My Husband Would Never podcast. It's more than a podcast. It's also my open diary. It dives into everything love, dating, romance, and everything in between. I share real stories about my dating experiences, my romance experiences, to give encouragement to other hopeless romantics. And while I don't know my husband yet, I do know what my husband would never do. And that's why I exist.
I know that's right.
Okay.
Well, welcome. We're so happy that you're joining us again.
Thank you.
Yes. And just to reiterate, make sure you follow her on Instagram at My Husband Would Never. She has an awesome page, lots of quotes, inspiration. So yeah, it's at My Husband Would Never on Instagram. All right. So we're going to jump into our first segment today, which is called Girl, What's Good? And in this segment, we talk about things that we've been loving for the past couple of weeks. It could be a book, a place, store, a wine. So we're going to start with you, Champagne. What have you been loving? What's been good with you?
What's been good with me is Insecure. I'm really happy that Insecure is back. I'm happy to see that one of my predictions came through, which is Issa and Lawrence have separated. I'm so glad because we don't need to keep going back to move forward. I think she's doubled back enough with Lawrence.
Amen.
And then I also found this brandy that tastes like Christmas, like a vanilla frappuccino sort of thing. It's called Tuwaka. Tuwaka sponsor us.
Okay.
It's really good though, just right over ice, let the ice melt a little bit, and it's like a little frappuccino in your mouth. It's really nice.
Okay, yeah, you'll have to send me that Tuwaka.
Tuwaka, yes.
Okay, yeah, you'll have to get the link together for the show notes so that we can look into that, especially as we go into the holiday season. Christmas in a glass, come on.
Yes, it's really good.
Okay.
I'm I'm glad you brought up insecure because even though I like am team Issa and Lawrence, even I had to be like, okay, it's enough. But what's good with me is actually another podcast. So it's another podcast by a Black woman, and specifically an episode that I listened to this past week. The name of the podcast is Atlanta Entrepreneurs Legal Podcast. I wrote it down so I could say it right. And the episode is called Riches Are in the Niches, even though it's niches, but you know, it wouldn't rhyme that way. And even though I'm not a lawyer, don't aspire to be, I listen to this podcast because I know the podcast host. And in this episode, she was talking about how, you know, sometimes you are doing a lot of things and you're afraid to niche down because you think like, my value is in me doing, you know, a lot of different things so that, you know, if you need this or you need that, I got you covered. And she's a business lawyer. So, you know, there are several things that she can do. But recently she decided to niche down to trademark law. And that just like resonated with me because earlier this year I was feeling like, okay, you might be good at different things, but maybe it's time to focus in just a little bit. So yeah, I really enjoyed that episode. And I think everybody should listen to it, lawyer or not, because she was dropping gems. So yeah, Atlanta Entrepreneurs Legal Podcast. There we go.
Okay. My what's good is actually not another drink, but an item that's used to make a drink. And so obviously we're in the middle of fall season and we're all tempted to run to Starbucks, Caribou, wherever you get your hot drinks from. But what I've been loving is my Nespresso milk frother. So I've had this device for at least the last, I would say almost 4 or 5 years since I got married. And I never thought to use it just because it seemed like a lot of work, a lot of cleanup, and just pointless. But sometimes I want a fancy drink at home and I don't feel like leaving the house or paying $7 for a cup of coffee. And so, yeah, I've been loving my Nespresso milk frother. I was one of those people who thought it was a bit over the top to be frothing milk at home, but it does do all the work for you. And you can use it with tea. So yeah, as we're going through the colder months, I'd encourage you, if you have one already, start using it. The cleanup isn't that bad. And if you don't have one, I guess I'll link, you know, the Nespresso one in the show notes.
Nice. Okay. I like the variety that we were giving here. But what we're going to do is go ahead and jump into today's topic. So I've seen this question all over the internet, unfortunately. And it is the infamous, what do you bring to the table? And oftentimes when I see it, it is like men asking that question to women. And it's always a question that has struck a nerve with me. And we're going to talk a little bit about why that is today and our different viewpoints on, you know, what comes to mind when this question is asked or we see it on the internet, even if it's not asked directly to us, but, you know, having to see women answer that particular question. So I'm going to start with Miss Champagne Giggles. And I want to ask, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear that question?
That I'm dealing with a very broke man and that he is an opportunist. Like I try not to answer that question as much as possible now and counter it like, well, can you build a table? Why are you asking me what I bring to the table? Can you build one?
Hey. I love that answer. Straight to the point. Yeah. Samaria, what about you?
So it gives me like, prove yourself to me, you know, like kind of the power dynamic of I'm superior and you owe me an explanation for why I should spend my time talking to you, courting you, or what have you. So I don't like this question. I mean, that's probably obvious. I don't like this question just because I think that power dynamic is at play, that you have to show me why you're worth my time. And I don't think dating should be like that at all. How about you?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. It definitely feels very competitive and like they're sizing you up. And it just kind of throws the whole vibe off. of that initial date or dating process. I agree with everything both of you all said. In addition to, it makes me feel like you're impatient with the process. I think that just going on a few dates, talking on the phone, texting, whatever it may be, you're going to learn about each other. And it just feels like you're trying to skip a very crucial part of the process. Is it tedious? Yes, but the dating process is there for a reason. And it just feels like you're in a rush and impatient. And if you don't give the right answer, then scoot on, get on.
Yeah. And even back to what Champagne was saying, like you're probably an opportunist. I think it could go two ways. It could go like the opportunist route, or you'll have those people who like are maybe intimidated. Like when you say all that you bring to the table and they feel like, oh, I don't offer enough. Either they want to take advantage of that, or on the other hand, they might be like, oh, well, she thinks she's too good for me or whatever, when nobody even said that. So
yeah, it reminds me of the episode we did on getting married late with Marlissa, and she talked about how she started to hide that she had a house, she had just bought a new car, because these guys will be like, oh, well, you don't need me for anything. But you're also right, the flip side could happen as well, where they do feel intimidated, or they could try to use you.
I agree. I recently was talking with a man, and we were like talking about our careers, and he's like, how did you position yourself to get in that sort of career? And like outside of your career, you have all these extracurriculars. And I let him know how I position myself for what I have going on in my life. And he was like, wow, you're a woman.
What? What? No, because that was a fake one before.
Right. Like, what does that even mean? And so, like, I like through dating, like I've heard things like that, or like, oh, you're overqualified, or oh, you don't seem like you need a man, which is true. I don't need a man. Do I want one? Yeah, but I don't need one. And like that's the beauty of relationships. Like you're not coming to take from somebody, you're coming to gain and build together and grow together. And I feel in this generation, that's something that is lost and many people don't understand or have a hard time understanding.
Yeah. So I want to ask you, Champagne, what do you think that these men are trying to accomplish by asking you something like that, since it seems that it's come up a couple of times?
Yeah. So there is this theme or idea that women are gold diggers and just looking to gain something from a relationship. I believe that men ask this question because they are attempting to weed out the gold diggers. But like I said earlier, a man who's asking this question doesn't have any gold to dig, probably. So it's really not a good question. You're not really going to learn anything by asking, what do you bring to the table? And me being sarcastic and I'm just going to throw it right back at you and like do that verbal sparring, because there's nothing else to say other than, can you build me one?
Right.
Yeah, so I'm gonna ask you, like, what do you think they're trying to accomplish when they ask that question?
Yeah, so I think you kind of touched on it earlier, where I think one, they're trying to shift the traditional societal dynamic in terms of roles in a relationship. They're trying to see if maybe you'd be in the position of doing the chasing or proving yourself to them. When I think some people would say that the men typically are the chasers and the ones pursuing women. I think they're trying to do this type of role reversal thing to where maybe they don't subscribe to what we would say is the norm. They're kind of going against the grain. I think that they're just trying to see what you're open to, as well as I'd say that I don't think that they're actually trying to accomplish anything. I think it's just something to do. Maybe they're checking a box and maybe they see it as being productive, but like Champagne said, like really no matter, you could say anything. You could say, I'll build the whole table. I'll bring the whole table. Whatever your answer is, I don't necessarily think that it makes a difference one way or the other, because like with anything in life, you'd still have to quote unquote prove it, because it's just words. It's just something to say, something to do.
Yeah, I'm so glad you guys went first because I still don't know what they're trying to accomplish. I'm like, say more. What do you guys think about that? I just don't understand it, especially because like you could be a woman who offers so much or who brings so much to the table, but if those aren't the things or the areas that that man needs help in, like you are maybe of no use to him. So I don't understand like, oh, I can say, oh, well, I can cook and I can clean. And you could be like, oh, okay, well, I be cooking and I be cleaning myself. So you don't need it. But the guy who's like, hey, I'm on the run all the time. And, maybe I do need a meal cooked or whatever. That's a person who might benefit. So I don't see the point in asking that. I think you can, like Neosha was saying earlier, just get to know somebody and just understanding yourself, know that, oh, based on what this person is saying during our conversations, they may or may not be what I'm looking for. So yeah, maybe they're just looking for their ego to be stroked, or I really do not know.
I don't think that they are interested in seeing the value in what you're saying that you would bring. That's what I think.
Yeah.
It could be, oh, I could cook, or, oh, I have such and such degree. I don't think it would matter what you say. I personally think when they're prompting you with that question, that they're not necessarily interested in seeing the value. It's like almost to throw you off your feet, like, whoa, because it is kind of a bizarre question, because most people go into the dating process thinking, okay, after date 2 or 3, you're going to learn about me. And then you kind of go back to your house and you make that assessment of, hey, is this valuable to me or isn't this valuable to me? Not, hey, what do you bring? Give me your checklist. And then I'm going to decide in the moment. It's very bizarre.
Yeah. It's such a wild
question. It's a very bold question. Like, to me, it's right up there, like asking about your salary. I was on the phone with a gentleman, and I'm the type of person who, like, even if I don't find like physical attraction in you, I will give you a chance, because sometimes like that emotional connection can override that. And then you find like this person so attractive, or vice versa. Like you found somebody very physically attractive, you have a conversation and you're like, oh, never mind. So we were having a conversation, and one of the first things he asked me is like, so how much money do you make, if you don't mind me asking?
Girl, I do. No. Mind you asking? What?
That's exactly what I said. I said, I do mind. My bills are paid and I have enough left over to have some fun after, if that's what you're asking. And he was like, I just want to make sure that like we're on the same level. Like, I want to make sure we're equally yoked. I'm like, don't do that now. Don't do that, because I know exactly what you're trying to do. You are not going to check my pockets. This is not what this is about. I am not going to be an investor. If you need a mentor, like, please let me know. But this just is not sexy. Like, it's not doing it for me.
That is so bold. And then for him to try to cover it up, like, if you're going to be that bold, be bold all the way through the process, and just like lean into it. Don't try to back away when you're really pressed up against the wall now.
I just cannot believe somebody would ask that. That's so insane.
Well, and then once again, if you go through the process of getting to know me, we start hanging out, you see, oh, wow, she's traveling, she's doing her thing. You're going to observe things about each other. And as an adult, you could probably draw certain conclusions like, I've been around this young lady for, 10 weeks and she doesn't ask, hey, or make comments like, oh, I can't pay my bills, or my car is this or that. Like, she's living a comfortable life, but it's like, you don't even want to go through that process. It sends the message of, inadvertently, I think sometimes, that, hey, I don't want to invest too much into this time-wise from the jump if you don't have XYZ, or you're not willing to prove whatever to me.
But also, like, finances, that's like a marriage question. Like, if you're not about to propose to me, why do my finances even matter to you? Because yours don't matter to me. Like, it's just, if you're dating me or we're talking just on the phone, that's above your pay grade. Like you have not reached that stage yet, you know?
Champagne. So you said that men have asked you this question before. You've given a couple of examples. Do you have any additional ones that you'd like to share? Because I'm all invested.
Yeah, I really like to turn it right back on them and be like, what are you trying to gain from asking me this question? Like, I will ask them, like, what are you trying to understand about me as a person by asking me what I bring to the table? And I don't get any good answers. Like sometimes it's like, I'm seeing like what you could bring to our relationship. I'm like, great, that's just a synonym for what you just said. What do you mean? They don't do a great job of answering why they want to know. And Miosha, you said something super important earlier, and I believe that it's just a very low effort question. You're asking it because maybe you lack communication skills, you don't know how to rev up the conversation, or you're just really trying to be a parasite. That's all that communicates to me, is like you want something out of me other than me as a person, not like all of these other worldly possessions and things that I have. You want everything from me, which is it really turns me off. Like anybody that asks me that question, I don't like to ghost people, but I'm gonna go ghost.
I think that would definitely deserve it. So I can't remember being asked that question before, but Samaria, have you?
Yeah, so I remember somebody asking me this, and it was weird because of the question, but it was also weird because it wasn't someone who I was like interested in. And so it was like I was so confused. I'm like, why are you asking me this when I don't even like you, you know?
Like you like that.
Yeah. So yeah, also I didn't know enough about the person to know what I could even offer them, and that was why I didn't like them. Like from everything that I knew, there was nothing that we could offer each other. We're at different places in life, different life goals. You know, this person was older than me, but lived a lifestyle of someone who might be like a college kid. And, you know, that wasn't attractive to me. So yeah, I was just so confused. I'm like, why would he, you know, ask me that? Especially because I have in mind that it puts the other person as like the superior and I now have to prove myself. And I was just like, I don't think that's, you know, like what I would want out of this situation or any situation, but especially not that one because I wasn't feeling him. So yeah, I think like I said something to the effect of, you know, I'm not asking you to like me. Like I'm not looking for anything here, you know, so I don't really know how to answer that question. So yeah, that was the one time that question ever came up, which was confusing. But yeah.
Well, I've never been asked that question, but I probably say something like, I'm bringing my fork and knife.
I like that.
Oh man.
Um, so we've talked a lot about how men are asking this question. Champagne, do you know of women who are asking this question? Is this a thing?
I don't know any women who ask this question, and I believe it's because women from a very young age, or as girls, we are told to romanticize everything, like with the movies that are put in front of us, the shows that are put in front of us. Like we are taught to like cook, clean, rub his feet, like the Destiny's Child, I'll cater to you all the way, and trying to figure out like how we can make ourselves available and work for these men. And so we don't ask that question, and often we ignore red flags. And we're I can speak for myself. I typically don't ask the right questions early on or early enough in the relationship, which is why I say things like, okay, my husband would never do XYZ, because it clocks in my brain that like I don't need to stick around for this. Like there are so many fish in the sea, and I'm a prize. Like y'all aren't the prize at all. So I don't know many women that ask this question. I don't ask this question. I don't find it to be useful at all. it's it just fills me with like so much disgust when they ask me that. I am so turned off. It's up there with like, can you cook? Can you clean? And I'll ask, can you change my oil? Can you reshingle my home? What if the toilet goes out? Can you install a toilet? Okay, great. Like, come back to me when you have those skills. Because I'm not gonna lie, I was back in the day in high school, I was a member of Future Homemakers of America. I was actually an officer. I was an officer in Future Homemakers of America. And like, I have all those skills, and I did those skills for myself, not for somebody else. And I'm not going to ask you to bring anything to the table that I don't already have.
That's so funny because it really is kind of weird when someone asks the can you cook question too soon. It's like, dang, like I just started talking to you 10 minutes ago and we're already on that. Like, wow. So yeah, people do move fast, and it is a little bit of a, I don't want to say a turn off because I can't speak for all women, but at least for me, it does take me aback a little bit. Like, man, like we just started talking and you're already, trying to find out what I do in the kitchen, which it's not a problem, but so early on, it's just I don't know, a little weird.
Yeah, I love how you said that, like, we as young girls are kind of taught inadvertently to prove ourselves. Well, girl, you need to know how to do this, this, and this, this, and this if you want to be married. But that type of rhetoric and talk I've almost never heard, little boys being taught those things. And so you're right, it does start early with us kind of being very open maybe, but definitely not expecting that question.
Before I answer this question, I just thought about something. When I first graduated college and got my first job, there was a man who worked there. I mean, everybody was older than me. We were like the three youngest, the people who started with me. And I remember him saying like, yeah, I can cook and I can clean and all of this stuff. And before I asked my wife to marry me, I asked her, I was like, I do the cooking, I do the cleaning. So what do I need you for? And this was before like this question became so huge on social media. This was before social media was what it is now. But young me was still like, oh, that's interesting. But he said that she answered him and he was satisfied with the answer. So like, I often think about this man. I graduated college in 2011. Okay. And till this day, I think about like, I wonder if they're still married. I wonder how she feels about it. It just struck me as so strange, that he would after dating her for so long, he still had to ask that question. So it's like, dang, does it never end? But
Cha.
I know
that stressed me out. That question, like that, and that really, I like visibly stressed. Like
that's why 10 years later, I'm still thinking about it. Like, I just can't imagine. Like, we spent all this time together and you don't know what my value is. So why did you waste all this time with me? Or why are you considering marrying me? You tell me, But I mean, I hope they're married. Obviously, I'm not like, oh, I hope she left him. But I hope they're still happily married and, maybe it worked for her.
So Samaria, do you think that women ask men what they bring to the table?
Okay. I don't think we ask like just blatantly that question, but I guess there have been videos that I've seen where like women talk about like testing men. So, oh, well, I'm going to have him take me to this restaurant, or I'm going to tell him I want to go to this place and just test him to see if, financially he can do the things that I want him to do. And I don't think that's necessary either. I think if you are interested in building a life with somebody, then, like we've said a few times, get to know them. And then, you can see certain things like, okay, I noticed that he always wants to go to McDonald's, or, he never wants to take me to anywhere nice or whatever. So I don't think women ask that particular question. but I have seen like videos of women talking about like testing men and wanting to make sure that they are at a certain level financially before they proceed. So yeah, I don't support either of those. I just have seen it a lot recently.
Okay. Yeah, I'd agree that I don't think women are outright asking, what do you bring to the table? I think throughout the dating process, we're just observant. And like Champagne said earlier, some of the men are trying to weed out the gold diggers. And so I think some women, even if they are thinking to ask that question, they won't, because they don't want to be perceived as a gold digger, to see like, oh, well, what do you have, or what can you do for me, especially not so soon in the dating process. But what I will say is that I personally think that women are making assessments very early on in terms of a man's financial stability. And from my life experience, I think women are doing this from a very natural, impulsive state in terms of assessing risk, especially if they've decided, like, oh, this is a person that I would be intimate or sexually active with, knowing that every encounter could potentially lead to a pregnancy. So, yes, I do think women are assessing what a man can bring to the table, but I don't think it's to finance their lifestyle. I don't think that it's to come up. I truly believe that it's from a risk standpoint of, hey, should this lead to a child? What does that mean? A pregnancy? Obviously, all of these things change lifestyles and cost money. And unfortunately, when women don't, make certain decisions in terms of men or mates, a lot of times on the back end, it's, well, why didn't you assess? Or, oh, you didn't know that he was unstable, or he didn't have money, or he couldn't support a child. So I think, especially with the millennial generation and younger, we're kind of thinking a few steps ahead of, okay, well, if it leads to a child, then what does that mean for me and my child financially?
Yeah. I think the most recent video that I saw wasn't that case. I do think like people who we might surround ourselves with, if there were any like assessing of financial stability, that would probably be the reason. But I do think this video that I saw, this young lady was just like, I need to know what your bank account is looking like. And I think there are women out there like that, and no shade to them. I think sometimes they're doing it because they see that men are asking these questions about, oh, what do you bring to the table? And so they think like, oh, that's my retort. And then in other cases, like, city girls or whatever, it's like, I just want somebody who makes a lot of money. So I do think that there are women who are just like, I need to know, I need to test him and see if he can support my lifestyle. Yeah, and expecting a man to support whatever lifestyle it is that they think a man should be supporting, like Blue Therapy. I don't know if you saw that, Champagne, but like there was this show from the UK called Blue Therapy. I think it's all fake, but the way they presented it was that there were two couples who were going through it, and they were going to therapy. And one of the couples, the girl was like, he needs to be able to fund my lifestyle. Like, I like gifts, I like expensive gifts, and he needs to be able to meet me where I need him to meet me. So I do think there are women like that. Yeah, that's all I want to say, is that there could be multiple, types of women. I do think there are women like that. Maybe the majority, at least from what I've seen, aren't. So that's why the internet is such a dangerous place, because it's like, oh, all women are like this. All women are gold diggers. So we need to ask, even if we don't have gold, what their intentions are. So yeah, that's all.
I agree. It's there is danger in the generalization of anyone and anything. But there are ways early on, like Neosha was saying, that you can identify if this person would be the right person for you. For example, asking the right questions. I was on a date, and I thought this was like the most attractive thing ever. So when the bill came, like, he saw the waiter coming, he pulled out his card and went like this.
You better be ready.
Okay.
I didn't even have to like do the purse fumbling thing, and which I don't do that. If we're going real primal, it's always been men are the providers, women are the nurturers, and with what the man provides, we make it into something special. So that means the man brings home the steak and I cook the steak, man is happy, wife is happy. And that's how it is. And I think there are difficulties now because there are people in relationships who feel like perhaps one partner is exerting more than the other. So it's like, I'm doing the grocery shopping, I'm doing the meal planning, I'm doing the cooking, I'm doing the cleaning. I don't feel like I'm existing in my feminine energy anymore because while perhaps my partner is paying the bills, I am cleaning, I'm making sure the kids are in bed, I'm cooking, I'm meal prepping, I'm showing up to all of the PTA meetings. So it's like finding that balance between, have I asked the right questions early on? Am I assessing if this is a true partnership? Is one of us providing and one of us nurturing, and like what are we bringing, and can we exist in transitional roles as well? Like not one partner has to always provide, not one partner always has to cook or clean or do any of that. Like that is the crux of what a partnership is. Like we are in this to support each other, to exist together. So, and we have common goals, and we just like being with each other. So let's do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also think too, especially for the millennial generation and probably even Gen X, I think as women, we have been taught to do it all. And not just within my friend circle, but just people I've met over the years, women, you know, yes, we can cook, we can clean, but then most of us have been raised or taught like, but you have to know how to take the trash out, and if you go get your car fixed, you need to ask these types of questions. And so for us, knowing that we're typically coming to situations having to at least know how to do it all, I think that throws a lot of women off when we're being asked, what do you bring to the table? Because I don't know any woman in my generation where they've kind of been raised just only in terms of like the homemaker role, or maybe like the stay-at-home wife role. That might happen, but because there's no crystal ball, we've been kind of on this path of, okay, you know how to cook, you know how to clean, you know how to sustain yourself.
Yeah.
And I don't know very many people who have like gotten married like when they were 18, like right out of high school. So most of us have gone on to live on our own, have our own places, really be just self-sufficient and independent. So when you meet another person as an adult, I would say age 25 or older, it's like, if you see that I'm self-sufficient and on my own, say you met me at a bar or something, you're asking me this, but I think it's kind of obvious that if I've gotten to this point, like, why are you asking the obvious? Knowing that this isn't 1950 and, you know, say you find out, oh, you're in a sorority. Okay, you can put two and two together. She probably went to college.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like you're asking the obvious and it's unnecessary.
That's true. So I do just want to close with this question, and that is, what advice do you give to young women, right? So I kind of understand like this isn't a question to answer, but to young women who might feel pressure to answer this question, what advice would you, a wise women, give to them?
Oh man, or oh ladies, let me do it that way. Listen between the lines. You know within 5 minutes or less of meeting somebody if you'll spend any additional time with them. And the questions that you ask early on that first date and the questions that are asked of you are extremely important to listen to. If somebody's asking you something like, what do you bring to the table? They're not necessarily there to get to know you or pursuing companionship, romantic companionship with you. They are asking, again, a very low effort question. They are being an opportunist. They're seeing what they can gain out of this relationship. So definitely listen between the lines, be extremely careful, and remember that you're the prize.
Yes.
Okay.
Miosha, what would you say?
Yeah, for young women, I would say it would really depend on what you're looking to get out of that encounter. And so if you're just in the dating phase, I guess it could be no harm of just getting to know the person and seeing where things go. If you're not looking for anything serious, if you are past that point in your dating life and you're looking for something long term, I personally think that if a person's asking you that question,
Mm.
that they could potentially be looking for a roommate style situation and a very transactional 50-50 type of dynamic. And if that's something that you don't want for yourself, then you should probably think long and hard about if you even answer the question at all and if you follow up. Because I believe that kind of the dynamic that's established early on can be
Mhm.
a true tell for probably what's going to carry throughout the duration of the relationship. So I think this kind of theme just keeps coming up where it's about think about what you want and what it's going to mean for your life. If it makes you feel uncomfortable in the moment, it probably is, and run with that.
Yeah. And just to add, so I've never encountered a man who was just very interested in me as a person who needed me to give him reasons to like me, you know? So before like the initial contact or whatever, he might have already seen something that interested him and he was willing to take the time to see if there was more to me that interested him. So he need my help in discovering, oh, what is it that I should like about you? So like these ladies have said, I do think it's lazy. It's a cop out. And I would say avoid men like that. You know, ask yourself, don't ask him, but ask yourself, okay, well, what does this person offer me? And if you're coming up with nothing, then that's your answer. Um, but yeah, just be careful because you don't want that power dynamic long term. Like that's not going to work where you constantly have to prove your value to anyone, let alone a romantic partner.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. So thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of the Girlfriends and Goals podcast. If you haven't subscribed already, please go ahead and do that now. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you like this video. Also, our time together does not have to end here. You've heard our thoughts on this topic, but we'd love to hear your thoughts as well. So make sure you follow us on Instagram at Girlfriends and Goals Podcast, where we'll continue the conversation throughout the next week. We also have Insecure reviews every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, so we hope to catch you there. Until next time, bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye. Thank you both for having me.
Oh,
Yes.
of course.